No. It is not in misfortune that a person is recognized, but in prosperity. And it depends on what exactly a person considers prosperity. A couple of diamonds in his jewelry, or a villa on the Côte d'Azur. Take John, for example. He was perfectly normal. We ate bread together and shared it with others. But when he started earning a little more money, that's when it started happening. It's that affluence that pulls out all the nasty stuff from inside him. All that foam that wasn't there when he was poor. Pam sorted through the pictures and thought about the reasons that led to her and her husband's separation and subsequent divorce. She decided to sort through her belongings, boxing up things that belonged only to herself so she could pack quickly when moving. But she found some student photos in the closet and became engrossed in them. The woman took one in her hands, where her ex-husband is still with a beard and lush hair. Where did what go? Sitting at a desk in a streaming classroom and looking up at, taking pictures. John, all caught up in working on mistakes in his term paper, raised his head, holding a pen to his mouth. That's how Steve took his picture. Why would he do that? John asked. What do you mean, as a memento? You'll be looking through the pictures in 15 years, and then bam, that's how handsome he was in 4th year. Oh, come on, Steve. What pictures? You'll never get any. It took me 2 years of practice before I got them out of you. It's a year away from graduation. That's a waste. I'll bring them to you as a birthday present or give them to Pam. Let them admire them. Look, our room is small. Where else are we going to store all this crap? And there's no telling where we'll be in 15 years. Maybe it's like Jack in the next world. A classmate of theirs went missing this summer. They didn't find him until fall on a railroad embankment. Either he'd had a fight with someone or he'd gone off on his own. Anyway, there's no more Jack. You know, John, stop being so boring. Life happens, and there's a lot of college memories to be made. If you don't want to see it, you don't have to. But I'll still take pictures. John didn't hear the last words as he went back to his term paper. Pam was sitting with the girls 2 rows down and heard the whole conversation, but she preferred not to interfere. Let the guys work things out amongst themselves. She's a wife, of course, but she's a student at the moment, and all personal relationships would remain until they returned to their dorm room after classes. The Institute's dorm was a hangout for the students who lived there, and an attraction for those who weren't supposed to have one. These were students who lived with their parents in cozy city apartments, or those who could afford to rent these apartments. However, both the former and the latter still spent all day and night in the dormitory. Here they fell in love and had fun. A lot of couples formed during those 4 years. John and Pam found each other. They were in parallel classes. Pam entered right after school, and John returned from the army and transferred to their faculty from another institute. They met at common lectures, but probably nothing would have happened if they hadn't gotten into the same brigade together on a student internship. That's when Pam noticed a black-haired, bearded guy with a great sense of humor and a bright head who began to pay attention to her. "Why did you suddenly start courting me?" she asked her husband later. "Because I saw that you can be relied on. And also because you are smart and beautiful, like a matryoshka doll." The last argument was doubtful for the girl. She had never seen anything beautiful in the round faces of matryoshka dolls. But for 10 years of life together, she realized that such a type for her husband was really interesting. Then they defended the practice on excellent and returned to the dorm as a couple. "Pam, why do you need this, John?" Steve had been nagging her ever since her college wedding. "You should have married me." "But you didn't suggest it, did you?" The girl smiled. "Who read poetry to you in practice? We took turns reading together. Remember? And in front of the whole group. Well, maybe in front of the whole group, but I read them to you, and you chose this guy instead of me. Steve, are you jealous or something? Of course I wanted to give you a long, careful courtship. And then he shows up on his high horse and takes you for a ride. But, you know, you've had more time. You and I have been freshmen together since freshman year, and he joined the faculty later. I was hoping I'd have more time." "How much time?" "Steve, a lifetime. I'm sorry, I'm not ready for that long of a wait. Besides, if you could just give me a hint, a look." "What about the poems?" "All right, Steve, get out of here." "Don't rub it in your eyes or I'll smack you," laughed the girl. "That's what you're like, Pam, not patient." "All right, what are we gonna do?" But I'll be right here if you need me, just call me. Anything? Well, things happen. Pam swung her hand at her companion and he smiled and walked away. Listen, there's a rumor going around the dorm. Tiffany, the best friend, was thrashing around and hiding her eyes. What else? Pam was tired of fighting off endless gossip about her family life. Tiffany, however, had not been involved in any way before. And then her friend knew John well too, so she had all of their family relationships in front of her. Well, they say John is here. Well, he's been seen with another girl more than once. So what? It's not like they had affairs. Their relationship didn't seem like a business relationship. Tiffany, why do you keep saying that? I just saw them. He was just gently holding her and kissing her on the cheek. You kiss him on the cheek, too. Am I supposed to be jealous of you now? Well, I just wanted to tell you. Why don't you two talk? Pam was talking and looking for her pants in the closet, but then she dropped her hands and looked at her friend carefully. Who is she? Someone named Louise from another department. And she's married, by the way. But here we are. Then what are we talking about? She's married, he's married. That's the whole conversation. She's just going through a divorce. And how do you know all this? Let's look at it from the outside. A girl John knows is getting a divorce. She's stressed. He feels the need to support her. Hence the gentle touch and the kiss on the cheek. What's so surprising? Still. Okay, I hear you, Tiffany. Let's talk about your schoolwork. You never passed calculus? Yes? No, I'm actually planning on taking a sabbatical. Are you crazy? What about me? You'll be in a different class and you'll find another friend. Is that what you're worried about? I'm worried about your relationship with John. It's fine. Where are we going to go from here? The friends laughed and went to the cafe for a morning coffee and croissant. John, there's a rumor going around the dorm about you and a certain Louise. Is there anything you want to tell me? My husband's pissed. Are you going to be jealous of every female acquaintance I meet? Who says I'm jealous? I just wanted to ask you to be careful. News travels fast in the dorms, Tiffany told me again. John, this is about you and your Louise, not my friend. Louise is not my friend. I just support her. She and her husband are sharing socks in their divorce. So what? That's someone else's life? Are you going to have an experience? What experience? I didn't realize you were so heartless. Besides, I'm not sharing socks with you. Right? Why do I need size 44 socks? Why do you want me to give you a size 39 to your new girlfriend? Anyway, I mean, if you're not happy with our life, just say so. If you want a divorce too. You're so calm when you say you're over love. What about you? In case you're wondering, I still love you. But I'm not ready to forcefully hold on to someone who's no longer interested. And yes, I also want to say that I'm not jealous at all, so I don't believe in your affairs. But things can change. John seemed to hear only one phrase out of the whole rant. Still in love? Can you prove it? Her husband moved closer to her, put his arms around her, and began kissing her fervently. Pam put her arms around his neck and returned the kiss. After graduation, Pam was offered a position in the department at the institute. John wasn't, apparently from that moment on, and from that moment, and started in him some envy for his wife. He couldn't get a job in his specialty, so he set up a buying and selling business. And it worked. John began to earn many times more than his wife. At home there was an expensive console, clothes, phone. But with the money came greed. And where did you spend so much money? He asked his wife almost every week. Why do you need a set of lingerie for so much money? I like you better without underwear. Pam wasn't even offended by that, but by how demeaning he was to her work. She had a small salary, but she liked her job and found it interesting. Pam had dreamed of such a job since she was a child and was happy that her dream had come true. You spend more on transportation than you get paid. You'd be better off staying home and doing chores. Every time John rebuked his wife. At first she tried to explain why she was still in this job, but John, who saw the money, didn't want to understand her. And the girl gave up these attempts, all the offenses smoothed out in bed, when they made love together. It was a passionate attraction, and from John came such strength and tenderness, which already reminded from student times. A couple years after graduation, Pam became pregnant. She was not happy about this circumstance and in general was rather cool to children. However, John was over the moon. "You are my beauty." He hugged his wife. "Here we'll give birth to my son. I will play with him, and we will go on vacation together to different interesting places." John started paying for doctors and research. His greed was gone. And for a moment, Pam believed everything was going to be okay. Toward the end of the pregnancy, John a little away from her, but the woman decided that it was because she with such a belly clearly does not cause sympathy even in himself, and she took it with a certain degree of doom. Through mutual acquaintances to her rumors about not flawless behavior of her husband, but she wrote it all off to human envy and tried not to pay attention to them. John was still attentive and caring, bought her goodies and necessary medications, and behaved like a caring husband. "John, get up." Pam affectionately patted her husband on the shoulder. "What? What's happening?" He opened his eyes. "I think my water broke." "Yes? Then I'm calling an ambulance." "At least I'll get a ride in a car with lights," Pam thought as the ambulance drove her to the hospital. That's what I'm talking about. Going into labor and thinking about lights and sirens. 12 months later, she had a daughter. John wanted a son, but she wanted a girl. And she was very happy when the doctor at the ultrasound confirmed that there would be a daughter. John, however, was not reconciled. He looked at it all wrong. And then they say that a daughter takes away a mom's beauty, and you've become even more beautiful. So definitely a son. Pam looked in the mirror at her swollen figure and puffy face. It's not true. There's a saying that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What could be beautiful about this? This whole pregnancy by the end of the term was already irritating her to no end. It was impossible to sleep normally, walk quickly, stand up sharply. Basically all the things a girl used to do. And if some people are afraid of childbirth, she was looking forward to it as a relief from this burden. So she told Tiffany about it. "What's wrong with you? When you have a baby, it's going to be a lot of work, cradles, snot. Then when she grows up, she's going to have a broken nose and all kinds of soreness, and when she grows up, you won't be able to sleep, wondering where your kid is and who he's with." "No, Tiffany, you were wrong," my friend thought years later. "The older Mary gets, the easier it gets for me. Either my kid is so perfect or I see things differently. But I feel better now than I did when my daughter was an infant, and much better than I did when I was pregnant." John, if he was upset about having a girl, didn't show it. He happily greeted them from the birth center with toys, balloons, and flowers. At home, a decorated crib and lots of rattles awaited the baby. Pam realized that life was changing and for the better. "John, you can take Mary for a walk while I help and take care of her." Her husband looked up from the screen. "I, by the way, work all day long and earn your living. Can I at least do what I want to do on my day off? But you're the one who complains that the house isn't clean. And I can't do it because I'm with my daughter all the time. Look, you're home all day. You could carve out a couple hours for yourself and the household. The baby doesn't take up that much time. I don't even mention the fact that since Mary's been born, dinner on the table has become a rarity. John, you don't have to do anything. She just sleeps in the stroller and you can sit next to her and read a book or use your phone. Pam, I think I've made it very clear that I will take my daughter for walks, but not until she's old enough to make sense of it. Right now it's just time wasted. I have better things to do with my time." Pam, swallowing her tears, began to gather her daughter outside to go herself. Not only did John not help her with the child, he could only play for 10 minutes, but he also made constant complaints about why her daughter was crying, why yesterday's dinner was heated, why there was dust in the corner and the dishes were not washed. He's really getting tired. Pam justified her husband. Besides, he's providing for us. So far, Mary and I have been completely on his back, but then there were the complaints about his shirts not being ironed. And why is the baby grabbing his shirt with her dirty hands? Pam hoped it would go away when they went on vacation. But then she got a surprise. "John, where are we going on vacation? What do you need a vacation from?" Her husband was surprised. "You don't seem to be working very hard. It's enough that we live together, so we'll rest separately." "Okay, but can you at least ask your mom to help me with her granddaughter?" "Why would I do that? She raised her own kids. Besides, knowing your temper and hers, you two are bound to fight, and I'm not going to put you two together. And if it's a question of you and Mary or Mama, I'll choose her." I may have many wives and children, but I have only one mom. Let your mom help you. She's 1,000 miles away. It's okay. It's her first granddaughter. Let her come and help. Your mom has her first granddaughter too, and she lives across the street. But you don't think about that. If you want to live with your mother-in-law, I'll call her. My husband thought about it and backed down. I guess you're right. I'll give you money for a ticket, fly to your parents with Mary, and at the same time and rest. My husband's parents had moved to the city when Mary was born. They had chosen a place near their son's place and soon exchanged their apartment for a place on the next street. Pam hoped that her mother-in-law would help her at least a little, since she had raised 2 children herself and was no longer working. But in the first year of little Mary's life, the in-laws visited only 3 times for the birth of her granddaughter, New Year's Eve, and John's birthday. Pam's mother was not yet retired, but for the time of her daughter's arrival took time off and tried to help her with her granddaughter. That was Pam's vacation. After it, she even got over her resentment towards her husband, who went on vacation to the mountains. Nothing. Mary will grow up and we will go to the sea and to the mountains together. Then John will be able to walk with her and talk to her. For 10 years of life together and 7 years of daughter, John vacationed with Pam and Mary exactly once, when the girl was 4. On New Year's Eve, he paid for a bungalow at a ski resort. He brought along a single friend. You see, I'm a good skier, and I'd be bored spending all my time with Mary and you. You're just getting into skiing. Don't think I'll be on the slopes with you, but I won't be interested. What about Carl? He and I can go out and do things and have a good time. Interesting. Pam didn't like skiing, but Mary was happy to go skiing. Daddy, seeing such eagerness of the child and not wanting to burden himself, hired an instructor for his daughter, which freed Pam for almost the whole day. She walked in the woods, sat in the sauna, went grocery shopping and cooked for everyone, all while relaxing. Pam was looking at pictures from the New Year's Eve dinner at the hotel and their time together after the sauna, when another picture of little Mary and a group of similarly small children fell out nearby. The woman picked it up, looked at it, and smiled. It was probably from that moment that her journey to today began, the journey to long-awaited freedom. When her daughter turned 2, Pam realized that she had to go to work, or her husband and his nagging would eat her up. And this way, she'd have an excuse. At that age, the child was not yet taken to kindergarten. However, through acquaintances, she found a nanny, who at home was engaged with a group of 5 such kids, including her son. Pam liked the girl, and although the payment was almost the entire salary at the institute, the young mom wanted to break free so badly that she was willing to do anything. When John realized that his wife was also working, his complaints about her changed. What kind of work is this? Where's your paycheck? Why work for a pittance? Well, now that you also work, let's put half of our income into the family budget. And mind you, it's a very good deal for you. You earn much less than that. I know that, and I'm not asking you to contribute the same amount as me. I realize you can't afford it, just half your salary. But John, I can't. I'm spending most of my money on babysitting and transportation. Well, that was your choice. Could you have stayed at home? I would have provided. But if you're going to work, then we have to contribute equally to the family income. Don't you think so? If you can't do half, then how about this? You say how much you can do. We'll calculate a percentage of your paycheck, and I'll put in the same percentage of mine. Just to be fair. Pam agreed to this arrangement. At the first paycheck, she realized she was broke again. All the money went to her daughter, travel, and the family budget. John did not deny himself the pleasure of spending almost all of his earnings on entertainment. His wife counted the smallest penny to buy his daughter for the winter overalls. And when she was paid a bonus at the institute, she did not tell her husband about it, but he found out himself. And at home there was another scandal. Are you going to cheat on me? No, that's not going to work. If you won't invest in the family, I won't. Let's split the budget, and we'll each spend what we think we need to spend. Pam was so tired of the constant money fights, she agreed. It turned out to be a great idea, because she didn't have enough money for food, and the woman simply stopped cooking. Her task was to feed Mary, which she successfully did from her meager salary. But then her husband went without breakfast and dinner. John began to get angry. What kind of wife are you if there's nothing to eat in the house, and I don't have money for groceries? Pam was throwing her hands up in the air. Especially not the kind you're used to eating. I can live on tea, so I buy it. John realized that his ingenious idea had failed and began to bring groceries into the house himself sometimes. If they were, Pam cooked, and no judgment. The girl had lost a lot of weight in the meantime. This was noticed by Tiffany during the next sit-downs at home, where her friend agreed to come. She couldn't be lured to any of the cafes. "Do you eat anything at all?" Tiffany asked. "You've become skin and bones. When there's something left, yeah, I can live on tea for a week. But that's okay, I'm used to it." Tiffany, aware of Pam's troubled relationship with her husband, turned the conversation in another direction. "Maybe you should talk to your boss about getting a raise. I told you it's already maxed out for my position, and he gives me a bonus. But you realize it's still a pittance compared to John's income." "It is. So why don't you change jobs? Why are you holding on to it?" "I like it, but I'm ready to change too because Mary needs more and more and my income can't keep up. What am I supposed to do? I'm in my specialty, and I can't do anything else. And that's the kind of salary you'd get anywhere." "Well, maybe a little more. It's not worth it." "Dave," Tiffany commanded her husband, "I'm sure you can come up with something. Any ideas?" The man's thinking. "Well, only if he joins us as an assistant. You're good with computers, right?" "Yes," his wife answered for her friend. She was the brightest head on the course. "In that case, we can try. Send your resume. I'll ask them to hire you." "I don't have a resume." Pam waved her hands in the air. "I've never worked anywhere but the Institute." "Oh, I see. Tiffany, take care of the kids, and Pam, go to the computer. We're going to draw you a decent biography." Tiffany got married right out of college to a guy she met by accident on the transit system. "Accidents don't happen by accident," she joked. Dave had taken his car in for insurance repairs after the accident and was taking public transportation for the first day. He hesitated at the entrance to the bus, not understanding where or how to put his bus pass, and held up all the passengers. Tiffany gave him a gentle nudge to get on. "Let people through, and I'll show you what to do later." When everyone was in and the bus had started, Tiffany took the man's card and demonstrated how to use it at the entrance by holding it up to the validator. "Is this your first time? You're a big boy, aren't you?" "First," nodded the young man. "The last time I rode on the transport there were still conductors. You just handed over the money and you were free to go. And you don't look so old." The girl smiled. "So it was in school. And so I always travel by car, in extreme cases on a bicycle." "So where are your wheeled means?" "The car is in service and you can't ride a bicycle to a client. So I'm relearning public transportation. It's okay. A useful skill." The girl approved and extended her hand to Tiffany. "Dave, nice to meet you. Are you here for work?" "No, I'm interviewing. I graduated from college, so I'm looking for one. Any luck?" "No luck." "Why?" "I don't want to work in my specialty. It's not my thing. I barely made it through college, but I can't go any further. Don't talk me into it." "So why did you study? Why do they all do it?" "To please my parents. I'm looking for something else. But either it doesn't suit me or I have no experience." "But nothing. I feel that luck is not far off. Optimism is a great companion to intuition," agreed the new acquaintance. "What if I could offer you something?" "Really? Can you? And in what field?" "Logistics." "That sounds nice." "What's that?" Dave laughed. "You give me your phone number, we'll set up a meeting, and I'll tell you about the job. The ride counts." The girl smiled. And Tiffany, who had never met or talked in transportation, easily dictated her phone number to him. Dave called that evening and suggested they meet the next day at a cafe nearby. "Do you guys live here?" Tiffany asked when she arrived for her date. "Come on. I live here too." "No way. Why haven't we met before? Maybe because you drive all the time?" "Maybe. How long have you lived there?" 6 months ago, I rented an apartment. "And you?" "I've lived there for 10 years. My parents gave it to me as a coming-of-age present." "Your parents are great. I don't get gifts like that." "Yeah, I'm not complaining." Dave told Tiffany about the job, asked her what she could do, and promised to train her in computer skills and map understanding. Now they often met at his house in the next driveway. When Tiffany arrived, Dave always had a delicious dinner and tea with some kind of dessert ready. They would study first and then sit down to eat. One day Dave moved closer to the girl, leaned in and kissed her. Tiffany, who hadn't expected it, was at first taken aback, and when feeling no response, Dave pulled away a little. The girl wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him herself. Then the classes moved to the background, and finally Dave realized that Tiffany was probably not suitable for common work, because she was more suitable for a life together. So he proposed to her. The girl said yes, and a year later they had a baby boy, whom Daddy insisted on naming Alex. Little Alex was 6 months older than Mary, and since Pam often came with her daughter to visit, considered her for his sister. Not only that, Pam's object of envy was how much time Dave spent with his son. He devoted all his free time to the baby. When Tiffany was a baby, Daddy would take him for walks, bathe him, and cut his nails, because Tiffany was afraid to do that. And yet Dave worked and made as much money as John. Pam never rebuked her husband out loud, but in her mind she involuntarily compared the behavior of the two fathers. Maybe it was because Dave had a son, and John had a daughter, she thought. What difference would it make? He's still her own child. Couldn't you be a little closer to him? Dave could play with her, even though she's nothing to him. Daughter, girlfriends, wives. But no reproaches that I'm supporting you. I've been working all week and now I have the right to rest. John runs straight to the computer to play. Dave comes to him in case of emergency. Don't you have any toys on your computer? Should we let the kids have some fun? Pam asked him as they sent the resume to the printer. Here's another one. First of all, it's not healthy for kids to be on the computer. And two, it's so annoying at work that I don't want to look at it on my legal day off. But it's in your house. Uh-huh. And collecting dust, Tiffany confirmed. And if it wasn't there, how would you and I have such a great resume? Dave winked at his wife's friend. I can't wait to work with you. Dave, don't get your hopes up. Just remember, I'm still a total clueless. Pam, don't sweat it. Experience doesn't come out of nowhere. Everybody's got to start. I was thinking about taking Tiffany as my assistant, but then I realized she'd be even better as a wife. So get ready. We'll be up and running in a week. Pam, here's the deal. Dave came to her desk. Girl, you're scared you've made another mistake, and this time it's serious. I quit. The man exhaled. Pam's eyes widened. What? I've been invited to another company with a higher salary. Do you realize that I'm the only one providing for my family? And it's an interesting and challenging job. Anyway, I handed in my resignation today, and I'll be out of here in 2 weeks. Dave, congratulations. I'm glad things are going so well for you. And thank you for bringing me here. I know what I'm doing now, and I'm making fewer mistakes. I hope your replacement doesn't fire me. There's not going to be a replacement. Why am I getting fired too? Pam's mind had already started calculating the odds of finding a job in this line of work. She liked it, but she still didn't have much experience. Practically, Dave smiled. Recommended you for my job. The girl's breath caught. Finally, she was able to exhale. Are you out of your mind? I haven't even worked 6 months. I don't know anything, and I'm always making mistakes. Have you thought about how I'm going to work? Of course, with full dedication, just like you're doing now. And in general, no one makes mistakes who doesn't do anything. You're making progress. You need a proper salary too. Mary's growing up, so don't be afraid. And remember, if things get tough, you can call me for advice. Or better yet, you can come visit. Tiffany would be thrilled. I mean, me too. Ever since Pam had taken over Dave's job, she'd been able to see her friend less and less. She worked all week, and on the weekends she had to clean, grocery shop. There wasn't much else to do, so she rarely had a day to spend with her friends. John, seeing that his wife was earning more money, came back with a proposal. Maybe we should go back to a half-income budget. Then it would be easier for you to run the household. And then Pam, feeling solid ground under her feet, said something that a year ago would not have dared to even think. John, are you listening to yourself? The two of us are going to pay for me to run this place alone. No, I'm perfectly happy with the way things are now. But wait a minute. Think of the kind of family we have. So you're all about Mary? No food in the house, no dinners or holidays together. Do I have to remind you that it's enough that we live together? We're going on vacation separately. Pam quoted her husband's words from the birth of her daughter. Well, that makes me a vacation every night. After all, I make money too, and I need relaxation just like you. After Pam was promoted to replace Dave, who had quit, her salary equaled John's. She could now afford not only a babysitter for the baby, but also restaurant lunches or shopping. And she could also now pay her own way to go on vacation with her daughter, even though her job required her to work incredibly hard sometimes until late at night and on weekends. The absence of money problems and constant harassment from her husband was worth it. Finally, the marriage began to disintegrate when Pam bought a second-hand car, but her own, and was happy to drive it to pick up the baby and even to a small trip. Now she could drive not only Mary, but often called her friend and her son with her when Dave was busy at work. John was wary of buying a car. What do you need it for? Wouldn't a cab be easier? If you don't have enough money? He didn't like cars himself and had tried to drive one a few times, but so far without success. But Pam loved the process of driving, and she enjoyed the speed, the noise of the engine, and the scenery. Later, Pam realized that John was just jealous of the fact that she was able to build her own life without his help. He even began to study with Mary more often, took her to museums and the zoo, but his relationship with his daughter had no bearing on his relationship with his wife. Pam also felt that her marriage had come to an end, and she took all her husband's outbursts calmly. "You know, I've decided to live alone," John said. "I can no longer. I need to rest after work. I can't do that with you and Mary." Pam shrugged. "Good decision. But I'm warning you, there's no going back." "What's the matter, Pam? It's not like I'm leaving you for another woman. I'm just getting an apartment next door so I can see Mary more often. I'll get some rest, and then I'll come back." "No, you won't. What are you trying to do, get a divorce?" "No. You want to get away from your own daughter." "I see. You're still going to have your opinion. I'm right. Anyway, think what you want. It's not going to change my mind. Neither will it change mine." "Pam, it's you." "Hi. Wow. Look at you. What are you doing here?" A young man approached her as she and Mary and Tiffany were relaxing by the river. A friend and her son had gone to attend to some urgent children's business, and Pam was coaxing Mary to eat a sandwich before drinking a Coke. "Steve, there's this meeting. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be up north somewhere." "I'm on vacation. I'm here to see my alma mater." Steve smiled and took a stroll through some of the places he's known since college. "And some friends took me out for a picnic." "Is this your daughter?" "Yeah. Meet Mary." "Mary, this is Uncle Steve." The daughter didn't notice her mother's acquaintance because John didn't spend much time with her. Mary, unlike many girls her age, ignored grown men altogether. Apparently they didn't fit into her picture of life. "Tiffany and the kids and I are here for a weekend getaway. You can see the weather's cooperating." "Where's Tiffany?" Vaughn. Pam pointed to her returning friend. When she came over, she was surprised too. "Steve, hi. You're supposed to be up north somewhere." "Hi, Tiffany. I'm always amazed at how knowledgeable you are." "That's exactly where I am. I'm just passing through on my way to the seaside." "Oh, great. Come join us in our tent, unless, of course, you're allergic to children." "I'd love to. I'll just get to my company. I'll let them know I'm leaving." Steve left, and Tiffany looked at him and suddenly said, "No, he won't." "Fine." Pam shrugged. "I didn't really feel like it." This time, however, her friend was wrong, and in about 15 minutes the former classmate threw his things on the plaid and went to fly the kite he'd brought with him with the kids. Here the boys gave it up, recognizing that there were kids here. Again, Pam watched and marveled at how a complete stranger was entertaining their children with absolutely no discomfort, and immediately her thoughts returned to her husband. "What are you thinking about?" Tiffany asked her. "About John not taking care of Mary. Maybe you made the wrong choice then, and it doesn't matter now. And if John and I hadn't gotten married, there wouldn't be a Mary." "I don't agree to that." "So where's your hubby spending his weekends?" "Mine's working overtime." "And John?" "Who knows? We've been living like roommates lately. I'm not interested in his plans. He's not interested in ours. When Mary and I went out, he was playing with his toy. It's a strange family you two have. When you got married, everyone at school shrugged. Didn't think your marriage would last more than a couple of years. And now look at you. It's been 8 years. Well, it's probably a sin to say that, but my happiest years with my husband were before my daughter was born. And after Mary came along, my life changed dramatically, and he didn't want to change his. That's how we ended up not on parallel but divergent courses, and like ships at sea, we're drifting further and further apart. What are the prospects? Tiffany asked. None. John talked me into getting pregnant again and having a second child a year and a half ago, and his in-laws kept telling me to do it. It's a single-parent family. There should be 2 children, a boy and a girl. I don't know why they thought the second one would be a boy, but I'm not signing up for this anymore. I never once liked the process of pregnancy, or everything that followed. So that's what I told him. Not me. Or maybe it's because he feels that way about kids. And if you had a different husband, maybe you'd have a second and a third. Pam thought for a moment. No, I don't think so. It's not my thing. But John's personality, of course, played a part too. The way I'd been on my own for 2 years without the slightest help from him, and with constant reproaches. No, I don't want that anymore. And now you don't fight with him? Do you fight with the neighbors? No, Tiffany laughed. Mommy, look. Mary ran up to the plaid with a string in her hand with a kite floating in the sky. My Uncle Steve put a kite in the air for me. Alex and Steve followed the girl. It's very beautiful, Pam praised. Why don't you let Alex play? He gave it to me. I'm the oldest, the boy said proudly. His mom smiled. A real gentleman, Steve marveled. Why, girls, should she get something to eat? 'Cause I'm starving. Sure, Steve, sit down. Pam invited him over. Tiffany and I got food as usual, and these guys are traditionally soda drinkers. Why don't you tell us about your job? What's there to tell about it? The young man waved his hand. Work is work, but the pay is good. I can't complain. And how do you both take care of the children? I do. Tiffany nodded. Pam doesn't. She's working hard, practically around the clock. So the fact that you met us here is a very big coincidence. Oh, really? You're still at the institute? Steve turned to the girl. No, I quit a long time ago. She waved her hand. The pay was too low. Is that a problem for you? I hear John's making a lot of money. Could you do it for free? No. That even Conti Manciusk was rumored. That's the thing. He makes a lot of money, but he's not eager to share it. Pam tried to think of a softer way to put it. I had to stand on my own 2 feet to prove something to him. That's your life. Proving things to each other. That's when Tiffany's cell phone rang. When she hung up, she said Dave got off early. He'll be here in about 15 minutes. Dave? The guest was surprised. That's Tiffany's husband. The girl nodded. Then I'd better be going. No way. Pam stopped him. We're not letting you go. You'll meet him. He's great. And he's the one who helped me with my job. Where did Tiffany find such a treasure? You won't believe it on the bus, she laughed. Knowing your personality, I would believe it. What kind of business does he work in? Logistics. It's a good job. And you, Pam, are you working with him? Not anymore. I'm on my own. Yeah, in that line of work too. Well, then we have a lot to talk about. I was just looking for someone like you to consult with. Why wait for Dave? Tiffany wondered. There's a great professional right in front of you. Tiffany, don't exaggerate. Unlike your husband, I've only been in the industry a week, but he's always spoken highly of your work and abilities and wasn't even afraid to recommend you for his job when he quit. Still, 1 head's good, 2 heads are better, especially since he'll be here soon. In the meantime, we're waiting for him. Steve, why don't you read us some poetry? You used to be so good at it. Well, you remember, I haven't done it in a long time. Why not? What about the girl you love on the bench at dusk? I don't have a favorite girl. No wife? No, I told you I'd wait for you. I'm waiting for you, Steve joked. You shouldn't, Pam said, either jokingly or seriously. If I ever divorce John, I'll never marry again. I don't make the same mistake twice. There you go, whistled the young man. Why, can you get a divorce? Things happen in life. No one is immune to it. John actually rented an apartment in a neighboring building and periodically called Mary to visit him. She almost always refused. "That's your upbringing," he reprimanded his wife when he came home occasionally. "What did you want?" She shrugged. "You said you'd take care of the kid when she got older, didn't you? You just didn't ask if she'd need you when she did. She's not used to hanging out with you. She's more used to having fun with her friends and Tiffany. It's all excuses. You've turned her against my parents too, so she won't even go to my parents' house." "Me? What have your parents done to make her want to go? For the last 2 years, they won't even put a present from Grandma and Grandpa under the tree. And on her birthday, they just give her another doll. She's 8 years old and they have no idea she's their only one." Pam emphasized that word. Her granddaughter hasn't played with dolls since about the age she started walking. Kids don't like old people much anyway, and strangers even less so. Granddaughter grew up and they never got around to showing her an interest in socializing. "You'd think your parents talked to Mary a lot, wouldn't you?" "Yeah, more than yours. Even though they live very far away. And my mom, by the way, for every birthday and New Year's Eve sends packages with a gift for her beloved granddaughter. And when we fly to visit them, they drop all their business and spend time with us. So you can't blame Mary's upbringing on my family. You gave her up yourself?" Back when her daughter was in kindergarten for the last year, Pam found her a nanny who could pick her up and wait until Mom got home from work. Daddy, who by then had closed his business and taken a job, refused to do it on the grounds of what the teachers would think of her, Pam, if her daughter was picked up by her father. "It's a blow to your own reputation, like you don't look after your daughter at all. Since when did you start caring about my reputation? I don't care what the daycare center thinks of me. And if the nanny takes the baby, don't they think both parents have given up on their daughter?" Louise quickly found a rapport with Mary, and the girl loved spending time with her nanny. She once called Nanny Grandma in front of Pam. Louise freaked out. "What kind of grandmother am I to you, little girl?" "That's right," Pam encouraged her daughter. "And who are you? One grandmother is far away, and you're the other one who's near. You won't mind if she calls me that." "No, Louise, I'm glad she has a grandmother available to her." After that conversation, the nanny really began to treat the girl like her own granddaughter. When Mary went to school, it turned out that she really liked swimming, and the instructor at the school pool recommended enrolling her in a real pool. It won't be too late to make an Olympic champion out of her. For that, you have to start at the age of 4, but it will be very good for her health and energy. When Pam asked her daughter if she wanted to swim for real, Mary squeezed her eyes shut with delight. Now trips to the pool were added to Louise's responsibilities. Pam's life had settled down, and the girl was earning a quiet income knowing her daughter was supervised. At least twice a year, her mother took a vacation and went on vacation with Mary. A year and a half later, at 10 o'clock in the evening, when Mary was already lying down, John appeared on the doorstep. "You're late meeting him, Pam. My daughter's asleep." "I'm not here for my daughter. I'm here for you, for me." "Yeah. How would you like it if I came back and we were a family again? You're my most beautiful woman, and you're all I need." Pam's eyes went black. Just when she'd settled into a peaceful life, John decided she needed to ruin it. "We've been over this. I told you there was no turning back. Do you remember that?" "I do. But I'm sure you said it out of spite. You shouldn't have thought that. There were no hard feelings. Mary and I have a good life, and we don't need to change anything right now. In fact, it's our apartment. We bought it when we were married, so I have a right to live here." "Oh, that's what it's about. You could have just said that your paycheck wasn't enough to pay the rent, couldn't you? If that's the case, then come on over. Of course, Mary and I will live in one room and you in another. But there's no going back to my place and becoming a family again." "I'm sorry. Do you have someone?" "Of course. I have Mary and my job. I don't have the energy for anyone else. I don't want to. My daughter and I have enough. But if you think we're going to share our happiness with you, you're wrong. I've worked so hard to become independent from you, I won't go back into bondage." "You're not going back into bondage. We had a good life." "Yeah. And if it was good, why did you run away and think about it for a year and a half?" "No, John. If you don't have a place to live, you should come. You're right. It's your apartment too. But don't expect more than that." After that conversation, her husband's fervor waned, and he made no further attempts to win Pam back. Tiffany became pregnant the year Mary and Alex were to turn 5. The children had scrutinized her big belly together and even put a hand on it when the baby bumped in the womb. Cautiously, Tiffany told them, "It is still very small and tender, so the belly can be stroked and never pushed, not even gently." Dave really hoped it would be a girl. He'd even thought of a name for her. "And when Claire grows up, I'll tie her bows and walk her to school. No, I'm going to take her." The son argued with the father, but Claire turned out to be Andrew, and Tiffany's labor was complicated. The baby turned over in the womb, and doctors decided to give her a C-section to avoid complications. But while the woman was being prepped, she went into labor. The anesthesia had no time to take effect. When the doctors took over the operation, and Tiffany remembered it like a nightmare. Dave berated himself for not getting a paid doctor and a private room for his wife. But all was well. Andrew was born healthy, but very restless. And if Alex's parents had no problems, Andrew had to be rocked in his arms all night. He wouldn't sleep any other way. That's why both Tiffany and Dave walked with circles under their eyes. Pam, seeing this situation, began to take their oldest child with her on the weekends. They practiced and played together, went for walks, and then in the evening, together with Mary, got in the car and brought Alex to their home. Sometimes, though, he'd spend the night at Pam's house. "John, hi. Remember when you wanted to spend more time with your daughter? Well, now you've gotten that opportunity." There was a tense silence. Then the husband spoke up. "What's up?" "It's nothing. It's just that I'm going away on a business trip for a month. I have 3 options. Leave Mary with a nanny, but Louise is elderly, and it's hard for her to be with a fairly old girl all day long. Leave my daughter with you, or leave her in the care of Tiffany and Dave. But they already have 2. And 4-year-old Andrew is fidgety. What do you say? Let's take a chance." Pam said she could hear the thoughts in John's head through the tube. "I need to think about it. I'm sure you have until tomorrow night." John had agreed to share the burden of caring for his 9-year-old daughter with Louise. Now she had to bring Mary to her father's house after school or the pool, and then she could go home. At first, Pam was worried about how he would cope, but then she decided that her daughter was old enough, and if anything went wrong, she could always call and tell him. Because of the time difference, they could not often talk on the phone, so the girl shared her impressions later. When Pam returned, it turned out that Mary had run away from her father 3 times and had gotten to Tiffany's on her own. Then Dave would bring her back to John. Then the girl decided she was an adult and had a fight with Louise about her overprotective behavior. Pam had to give her a talking to. Mary, under pressure from her mother, apologized to the nanny, but after Pam returned from a business trip, she insisted that she no longer needed a nanny. "What did you eat while I was away?" Pam once asked her when the subject of her absence came up again. "At Daddy's, a woman came over," her daughter answered plaintively. "She was a very good cook. Her name is Kate." "Good." Pam nodded, and thought that if John could afford to hire a housekeeper, he could probably give her some money for her daughter. It was a fleeting thought, though, and it was forgotten immediately. "Pam, hi. It's Steve. Steve, how long have you been gone? Or is there no cell phone service up north? I'm not up there anymore. I moved to a warmer place." "Oh yeah? That's great. What do you mean we have a good acquaintance at sea now?" "Yes, we do. By the way, the weather is wonderful now. It's the velvet season. Come on over. I wish I'd told you sooner. All vacations are booked. But if you keep your word next year, maybe I won't think of backing out with Tiffany and the kids. Come on over. I'll tell her. How you doing?" "Well, married well, actually. I finally got married. Congratulations." "And who is she?" "I met her up there in the north, and together we decided to move to the heat. She's a construction worker like me." "That's great. What happened to your promise to wait for me?" "Pam, you know what I mean. And then you said yourself that it's a long shot. And Wendy's good." "Steve, I'm just kidding, and I wish you all the happiness in the world, honestly. I'm sure you're better off with her than you could be with me. You're just ignorant of my mind. I hope I get to meet your other half. I told her about you too. She said she wishes she had a friend like you and Tiffany. Well, it's possible. Maybe she'll be the 3rd one in our group. Well then, we have a deal, right? Next summer vacation is yours." "Absolutely. Dave, do you think maybe I should go to school?" Tiffany looked at her husband with hope. She was totally dependent on him financially, and there was a lot of money to be paid in tuition. Dave had been working long hours lately. The children were grown, and Tiffany wanted to put her hands as well as her head into something. On what? Dave wondered. And why? Don't you feel bad? But I want to find something I like too. You've been working all day. Pam is in a new field. She's already the head of the center. And I'm still at home. You're going to stop talking to me soon, but you're making stuff up. Who's going to stop? Pam? I'm not. If you want to go, you can go. Just tell me how much money you need. And you don't care what I learn. Tiffany was immediately upset that her husband had made it easy for her. The main thing is that you like a pretty girl, smiled Dave. Okay. Tiffany decided to keep the intrigue alive. Then I won't tell you. She named the amount of money she needed for tuition. A lot. Dave frowned. If it won't keep you from watching the boys, I'll pay it. Yay! Tiffany clapped her hands together and kissed her husband on the cheek. Dave put his arms around her and, without letting her go, moved the kiss to her lips. Wait, Tiffany whispered. I'll be right there, or we'll have another third. She doesn't mind at all, Dave insisted. Claire, we haven't had time to conceive yet. Tiffany laughed. Dave had been sent on a month-long business trip just as his wife was finishing her degree. Go, of course, she said. I'm almost done, so I can handle the boys. Well, I wanted to celebrate the occasion with you, Dave justified. And here we are. Besides, I want to know who you went to school with. You're just going to keep it a secret. You'll find out when you get back. Tiffany was smiling. She was finishing her degree in interior design. After she'd finished her grad work, she planned to redecorate the apartment they lived in, just as she'd pictured in her dreams. And a month of Dave's absence would have to suffice. All the more so because, given by their husband, she had time to save some money, on which she planned to hire craftsmen and buy materials. If you need money, you tell me right away. I'll transfer it. As if her husband had read her mind. Okay. Tiffany smiled. If you need it, you'll know about it the whole time your husband was away on business. The apartment was a mess. Tiffany and the boys even had to go to Pam's house for a week, while the workmen were doing the bathroom. Oh my gosh. A friend marveled when she heard about Tiffany's idea. I can only imagine how amazed her husband will be when he gets back. What if he doesn't like it? Tiffany wondered. Oh, my friend, I don't recognize you. You never had doubts before. I still don't. Tiffany raised her head proudly. Except I want you to like it. I want you to like it. Don't you know your husband? Sometimes I don't think I do. He's been kind of aloof lately before his business trip, like he's been working out a complicated problem in his head. That's probably what he was doing on the job. You know how many problems there are out there all the time? Trust me, there's a reason they pay that kind of money in logistics. Yeah, I know. But still, everything with us became something different, that the household tortured. He's always asking for Kshusha. And if there's a boy again, then you'll go for the fourth? No way. No way. I'm enough for 2. Or 3. Tiffany finished just in time for Dave's arrival. Can you believe it? She told her friend afterward. He just walked in and froze with his mouth open. He said he couldn't believe it was his apartment. He walked around for an hour and a half, looking at everything, touching it, asking how it was done. It's like this. I gave him a lecture. It's so cool to know more. So he liked it. He loved it. He couldn't wait for the boys to go to bed. And then he carried me to bed in his arms. And that was it. Tiffany, she clenched her eyes. It was like before we were married. It was so passionate. And I couldn't get enough. And it felt so good. I'm pregnant. You are. Congratulations. How did Dave react? He hasn't. He doesn't know yet. I'll tell him later, when the renovations have calmed down. Then I'll honor them with the news. And then we'll be back to sweet, sweet, sweet. And by the time the new baby comes, we'll have to make room in the apartment again. You're insulting me. I've already thought of everything, because we have a lot of space. Anyway, it's so great I'm afraid to breathe. Breathe, it's good. Don't be afraid. Remember I told you about Steve calling in the fall? Yeah. And that he got married? That's not what I meant. I mean, he invited us over for a visit. But I take it you're not going now? No, Tiffany, I don't have time for that. I've got to get my apartment photographed and put it in my portfolio, and then I'm looking for other assignments. I can do that for now. I'm not going to have time to design before I have my third. For some reason I thought Mary and I would take a couple of scouting trips, so to speak. I'll meet his Wendy too. Give them a big hello. I will. While Alex was at school and Andrew was at daycare, Tiffany had an ultrasound at the doctor's office. He printed out the scans and gave her a copy of the test results. Now at home, she looked around the freshly remodeled apartment and wondered where she could stick them so Dave would notice. The bell rang. It's a little early, Alex. Why is it ringing? Did he lose his key again? Tiffany put the scans and tests back in her bag and went to open the door. A woman in her last few weeks of pregnancy stood on the doorstep. Let me through. I'm your husband's new wife. I need to see the apartment. The pregnant stranger pushed her away. Who? Tiffany was stunned and shunned in surprise. What's so strange? You're Dave's wife? What am I then? You're a waste of material, an unnecessary burden. What do you like better? The woman went into the kitchen and looked around the kitchen. Tiffany followed her, even forgetting to close the door. What do you want, ma'am? The hostess was slowly coming to her senses. Get out of my house, out of yours. You wish. It's Dave's house. He bought it with his own money and kept you in it. Okay, now it's my turn. You can pack your bags. Woman, what the hell are you talking about? I want you out of this apartment now. The guest didn't listen and went to her rooms. Well, here's a nice corner. This is where we're going to put Claire's bed. For who? Tiffany marveled. This was the place she wanted to set aside for the bed of the future child, who, if there was a girl, would be Claire. Here the stranger pointed to her belly there, Claire, and she would live here. This is where I live, Tiffany said firmly. But it won't be for long. Dave is certainly a very sexy man, but a little indecisive. So I'm going to do this on my own. You're not doing anything. Get out of here right now, or I'll call the police. Well, you've got something to scare me. I'll call my husband and he'll have you and your puppies out of here in no time. You're the one with the puppy. I have his sons, by the way. As she shouted the last words, she saw 10-year-old Alex enter the apartment. Mom, what's going on? Tiffany opened her mouth to tell her what was happening, but the stranger beat her to it. What's going on is that you and your mom are getting out of here. You understand? And bring your brother with you. I'm gonna live here. Where's Daddy? I'm gonna live here with your dad, and we'll raise our child. The woman stroked her belly again. Your baby? Tiffany didn't immediately realize what had happened, but the eldest son was at her guest's side in an instant, punching her in the stomach with 2 fists. Ah! The woman screamed. Alex, what are you doing? Pulled his mother away from the stranger. You said to be gentle. Through tears tried to explain the child. Let her and her baby have it. And he wanted to do it again. Alex, you can't do that. It's not the baby's fault. But it is her fault. The strong athletic boy again broke out of his mother's arms and ran to the woman. She had prudently turned her belly to the wall and bending down, Tiffany grabbed her son again. Calm down. You better go call your father. Got it. While I walked her out, she sent Alex to the nursery and went back to the pregnant woman. Go away. Before anything happens to you. It's getting late. The woman turned and Tiffany was horrified to see her face. She was holding her stomach. Then she pulled her cell phone out of her bag and started calling an ambulance. The doctors arrived and put her on a gurney and wheeled her away. Tiffany closed the door behind them, sat on the couch in the hallway and cried. Alex came out of the room. Mom, I called Dad. He said he'll be here soon. Mom, what are you doing? The child saw his mom's shoulders shaking and ran up. Mommy, but don't cry, please. She's already gone. It's okay, but please. Alex ineptly stroked her head and shoulders, tried to hug her, but it only made her feel more sorry for herself. She wanted to cry even harder. What was she babbling about in there? Through her sobs, Tiffany thought, what kind of baby is Dave having? She needed to make me mad. Why would she do that? What's the point? Just to make me feel bad. Dave will be here in a minute to explain everything. Pam navigated to Steve's house and called Steve. Hi, we're here. 5 seconds. The gate started to open. Pam drove through them and parked. When she turned off the engine, Steve was standing next to her. Hey, how was your trip? Great, thank you. Mary, you remember Uncle Steve? You used to fly a kite with him once? My daughter nodded hesitantly. Just then, a blonde woman with a round face came out of the door. What a matryoshka doll, Pam thought. Hi, I'm Wendy. Welcome. Oh, thank you. I'm Pam, and this is my daughter Mary. I've heard about you from Steve. And I think I've known you for a long time, too. From what he told me. Come on in. Come on in. We're having a celebratory dinner tonight. There was fresh southern fruit and compotes on the living room table. It's an aperitif, Steve smiled. The pilaf tank is ready, so help yourselves from the road, then we'll eat later. Where did you learn to cook so good? Pam admired, having tasted only cooked pilaf on the grill. Was it in the north? Of course, laughed the former classmate. And that's already the staple food of the people there. In fact, there are a lot of shift workers from the southern regions. They taught me. Divine. Too bad Tiffany didn't go. She would have loved it. Why didn't she go, by the way? Oh, it's a long story. Pam waved her hand. I'll tell it later. If you want to, I can't tell it all. There's all sorts of secrets and intrigue that aren't mine. So I hope to come to you for reconnaissance, Wendy smiled, without fail. We'll be waiting. Steve's wife turned out to be a native northerner. According to the story, her parents came to the north for a couple of years in their youth and lived there all their lives. Why did you suddenly decide to go south? Pam wondered. I can't stay so cold. Wendy said I didn't want to hear about the cold anymore. So Steve took me to one of the warmest places in the world. No regrets. Not for a second. I love the warmth so much, I don't care if there's no snow, skis, sleds, or anything else. I'm perfectly happy without them. How about you, Steve? Are you happy too? Of course, the man smiled. Steve drove Pam and her daughter to local attractions during the vacation. Wendy almost always stayed home and cooked. Very good cooking. During the trip, Wendy tried Belarusian draniki, Ukrainian borscht with pampushkas, and Turkish kebab. Why doesn't Wendy ever come with us? Pam asked a fellow student. She doesn't want to get in our way. But she's not in the way at all, is she? I don't know. I've talked her into it, but she still refuses. Have you read your poems? No, I only read them to you. Try reading them to her. Maybe then she'll agree. Sometimes poems say more than all the persuasion, but they didn't work on you. Young and stupid, Tiffany smiled. You were chasing the hare, weren't you? Yeah. What's left of it? Steve laughed. Nothing. When we're 9 years old, we'll be 90. 100. Will you come to my place to warm your bones? We'll walk along the seafront, go to cafes, and reminisce. We will, Steve. Right now, we're not in our 90s yet. How about a trip to the water park? What do you think, Mary? Yay! The water park! Screamed her daughter. After what had happened, Tiffany thought Dave would be here in half an hour tops. She tried to call him, but his cell phone was unavailable. Tiffany had time to go and pick Andrew up from daycare, have dinner with the boys, and put them to bed. Andrew went straight to bed after a long walk. She couldn't get Alex to go to sleep. He resisted to the last. He wanted to wait for his father and tell him everything about the pregnant aunt. But by 12 o'clock his eyes began to droop, and finally he fell asleep. Tiffany sat in the kitchen with her hands on her head, looking out the dark window and seeing nothing. He should have arrived right away, but he still hadn't. Maybe something had happened and the phone was out of reach. Or maybe he thought it was nothing urgent, so he didn't hurry. But that should be plenty of time by now. Her eyes were closing too, from the experience and wasted nerves. When suddenly she heard the key turn in the keyhole, Tiffany stepped out into the hallway and saw her husband quietly undressing, a smile wafting across his face. Hello, darling. As if nothing had happened, he said. How are you? And tried to kiss his wife. Tiffany pulled away. Your son called you, didn't he? Yeah, so what? He was trying to tell me something about some aunt. I figured it was some kind of fantasy stronghold. He's 10 years old. What fantasy? Did something happen? First, tell me why you got off so late. Me and the guys worked long hours. Then we went to a bar and had a drink. I'm in a great mood. Let's go to bed. I want you so bad. You're the most beautiful woman I know. Tiffany was about to give in to his entreaties, but then she stopped herself. We had an unfortunate accident today, and Alex witnessed it. We'll have to make arrangements to explain it to him tomorrow. He waited until the last minute for you, but he fell asleep. What happened? I had a visitor. Who's a guest? Pam. She's in Adler. Did you talk to her? No, Pam, I don't know this woman's name, but she called me your wife. My what? What are you talking about? I only have one wife, and that's you. And this woman was also deeply pregnant and said you were expecting a child. Dave's face darkened. Tiffany, what are you talking about? What baby? Claire. That's what the lady told me. You think it's a coincidence? I think it's a stupid prank. And she was just faking it. Probably not. No, she wasn't. She had to call an ambulance and the woman was taken away to give birth. Did she get sick here? Well, she was fine at first. She tried to humiliate me in every possible way and told me that I was getting out of the apartment with my sons, and now you and your daughter were going to live here. And what did you say to her? I tried to kick her out, but she wouldn't leave and she went into labor, with Alex's help. He witnessed our conversation and pushed her. That's when we had to call an ambulance and send her to the doctors. Alex pushed a pregnant woman. Did you and I raise a monster? We raised a protector. He was protecting me from some imposter, so I wanted to find out where she came from. And she knows so much about you and me. Tiffany, but somebody set this whole thing up. I'm telling you. But you can't do that to a pregnant woman, can you? Yeah. How can you do that? I want her to have it bad. Let the baby stay. It's not his fault, but I wish she never recovered. What are you talking about? I didn't realize you were so mean. Besides, what's Claire going to be like without her mom? Who? Claire, you said it yourself, Claire. I don't get it. You're protecting her, not me. Why? Well, because she's a human being with this behavior. Well, look at me. Dave raised his eyes and looked at his wife. Tiffany could clearly see the joy in his eyes. Is this your baby? Tiffany, of course not, the husband said hesitantly. Dave, I know when you're lying. This is your baby and your mistress, Tiffany. Dave! God, I am so sick of your jealousy. Suddenly, my husband is furious. Both of you. She's yelling, when are you going to divorce her? The other demands money and the truth. I have 2 sons and a daughter, Claire, who was born today. I see, just like I wanted. If it weren't for the kids, I'd have left you both a long time ago. I just don't want them to grow up without a father. Do you hear what you're saying? Tiffany said quietly. You just admitted that you have a child with your mistress. You cheated on me. And you're not even ashamed of it. Yes, I did. More than once. It's the only way I can keep up that level you like so much in bed. I need novelty. And where do you get that? With Lara, I get new things. Then I come to you and introduce her, and we're back together again. What's wrong with that? So her name is Lara. Who cares what her name is? She gave birth to my daughter today, by the way. But you're my wife and she's just my lover. After today, I'm not sure that's going to change. Dave, what have you done? How are we going to live our lives? Simple. The same way we used to. What's changed? What you found out. But before you knew, you were fine with it. So just forget it like it never happened. Or accept that I have 2 of you. It's a month-long business trip. It just hit Tiffany. Was it for a month? No, it wasn't. And yes, I was staying with Lara because she was about to go into labor and needed my help around the clock. So you slept in bed with her, loved her, took care of her, while here I am and your sons were dutifully waiting for you to come back from your business trip. Yes. What would you want me to do if I told you they were staying a few days with another woman who was expecting my child? Don't play drama, just forget it. Yeah, I'll forget. And you'll spend the nights with this Lara woman who's going to have a couple more babies. And then you'll decide she's better than me. What am I saying? Is that what you've decided since you chose her and let her give birth to your daughter? You didn't want any more children. What was I supposed to do? I hadn't learned how to give birth yet. Tiffany remembered the pictures she had in her bag. She wanted to surprise her husband. And he was the surprise. And not a pleasant one at that. Tiffany refused to share a bed with Dave, so her husband was forced to move into the guest room. Should I get an abortion? She thought, lying in her bed. How am I going to pull 3 kids when I'm just a budding designer myself? And where will we live? And then she cried quietly into her pillow about the unfairness of life. Pam. Hi. How was your vacation? My friend's voice sounded very muffled on the phone. Hey, Tiffany. I'm great. Why are you calling? And in that voice. What's going on? Pam. Dave's cheating on me. Tiffany sobbed into the phone. She picked a time when the kids weren't home. She had to tell someone what had happened, but Pam was in Adler. Tiffany stared at the phone for a long time, then realized she had no choice, so she called her friend. Tiffany, what makes you think that? Pam tried to calm her down. His mistress came to see me yesterday, pregnant. Through her sobs, Tiffany tried to tell her. Claire gave him a baby girl last night. Oh my God. What's going on with you guys when I leave? It's like a bad soap opera going on. You can calm down and tell me everything in order. Tiffany walked to the kitchen, drank some water, exhaled and tried to speak calmly. Yesterday the doorbell rang first thing in the morning. I opened it and there was a pregnant woman. Pam listened to Tiffany's story about the mistress, about Alex, about the conversation with Dave, and her hair stood on end at what had happened. Did you tell him about your pregnancy? She asked her friend when she finished her story. No. Tiffany began to sob again. I don't need it at all now. I don't even want an abortion. Are you crazy? What abortion? How am I supposed to support the three of them? I have no income. Don't worry. First of all, there's child support for 3 kids. Yeah, on Dave's income, that's a pretty decent amount. Second of all, you've graduated so you can get a job. You don't have to sit in an office. I mean, you're in the right direction. What alimony? We're not divorced. Well, you are divorced. You're entitled to a place to live with your kids. Okay, what are we talking about on the phone? I'll tell you what.
I'll drive tomorrow morning and I'll be there tonight. We'll talk about it. Steve was indignant at lunch when Pam mentioned leaving tomorrow. And it hasn't even been a week since she got here. I'm sick of it. No, Steve. Tiffany's in some kind of trouble. We gotta go. At least leave Mary alone. The kid swims like a dolphin, and you've only taken her to the beach 4 times. Steve, are you serious? Absolutely. Wendy, why don't you tell her? Wendy nodded. Of course she did. Pam's keeping her daughter. We'll go to the beach together and she'll eat fruit. What's she gonna do in the city in the summer? Mary, are you ready to stay at Uncle Steve's with Aunt Wendy? Pam turned to her daughter and, seeing her happy face, realized she was going to have to make the trip back alone. She left some money which Steve absolutely refused to take. What are we, beggars or something? We can't feed the baby. It's just to give you some room to maneuver. Besides, I know her. She can be a bit of an asshole. So it's not for her, it's for you. I see. Pam got behind the wheel and headed back out. Dave, you're crazy. Pam was not shy when she came to talk to her best friend's husband. What kind of men are you? Do you get so crazy about money? It's just that our marriage has outlived its usefulness. I shrugged. Lara takes care of Claire and does all the housework. I've never had a life like this before. I used to be in a rush, but now I'm living it. What happened to you? You used to be all about helping everyone, but now you won't even fight for your own family. You just decided to quit and walk away. So what? What's wrong with me? You broke up with your boyfriend. You're relieved. I feel better. Don't compare me to you. I didn't dump my kid, and I would have dumped someone else anyway, Dave said. Either my sons or my daughter. What were you thinking, having an affair on the side? Getting into bed with another woman? And knocking her up. Your brain shuts down at times like that, and then it's too late. But the only question I'm asking is, do you think Tiffany's gonna forgive you when you go back to her? Well, don't get your hopes up. She's not that kind of girl. Who says I'm going back? Do you all go back? So? John's back too. Pam nodded. He tried. But there's no going back. I warned him about that. Well, I'm not going back. When Tiffany's resentment dies down, I'll be in touch with my sons. But I won't even think about going back. Well, it's probably the biggest mistake of your life. But you can't undo what you've done. I appreciate your help with the job, but I'm warning you. I'm gonna be on Tiffany's side from now on. I had no doubt about that. I wish I had friends like that. If you do to them what you do to your wives, you never will.
Tiffany named her daughter after her favorite friend Pam. The girl was quiet, so Tiffany often traveled out to see clients, leaving Andrew for her older brother along with her. Alex realized what had happened in the family and grew up dramatically. He considered himself the oldest now and responsible for his mom and brother and sister. Dave tried to call his eldest son and talk to him, but Alex's resentment toward his father was so strong that whenever he heard his voice on the phone, he said only one phrase, "Don't ever call here," and hung up. Tiffany's first clients were so pleased with her work that they now passed on the contacts of the talented designer to their acquaintances. Soon there were so many orders that Tiffany simply did not have time to cope with them all. She asked her friend for Louise's coordinates and started leaving her daughter with her. Then she asked the woman how much she wanted for housekeeping. And that's how Tiffany's rented apartment got a housekeeper. When little Pam was 3 years old, Tiffany finally finalized her divorce from Dave and bought her own apartment with her court-ordered share. She specifically looked for an apartment far away from her former place of residence so that Dave wouldn't know where to look for her and the kids. He never made any such attempt. The friends often traveled together to visit Steve and Wendy, and they became very good friends with them. The children also loved the joint trip to the sea. True, Alex and Mary were rapidly growing up and took part in joint meetings less and less often, preferring to rest on their own. Steve winked at his friends. "Look, maybe they'll be twinned soon." "What do you mean?" They didn't get it. "You're older kids. They spend all their time together. It won't be long before they start liking each other." "Oh, come on, Steve. They think of each other as brother and sister. But they're not brother and sister, are they?" "No. I think you're wrong." Pam confirmed what her friend said. "I'm not insisting. I'm just saying it could be." On one of their visits, Tiffany and Pam suddenly found themselves in front of a locked gate. Steve wasn't answering his cell phone, and Wendy wasn't home either. "That's odd," Tiffany wondered. "I told him when we were coming, and he said he'd make all the arrangements, and it turns out we weren't expected here. Maybe he got the numbers mixed up. That's what my friend suggested. Well, why doesn't he pick up the phone? I don't know. Okay, guys, we've already reached the sea. Let's go to the beach. We'll try to show up at Steve's place later tonight. But that doesn't sound like him at all." Tiffany nodded in agreement. "The only thing I'm worried about is that Alex and Mary are taking the train tonight. Where are we taking them? Come on, Tiffany. At the very least, we can pull up a tent and set up on the beach, or we could go up higher in the mountains." Alex and Mary had decided to travel on their own. Although they didn't refuse to vacation as a family, they, almost adults, had their own plans for summer vacations. This time they were coming together for only 4 days. The company settled down at their traditional spot on the familiar beach. The mothers spread towels and brought an umbrella for the sun from the car. Everyone changed clothes in the car. Tiffany was watching Andrew and little Pam when someone suddenly jumped into the water next to them with a big splash. "Hey, watch it," Tiffany yelled. "Can't you see there are kids swimming?" "I'm kids too," the oldest son said in his bass voice. Tiffany gasped. "What are you doing here? You were supposed to be the lead singer tonight." "Yeah, I thought it would be faster on the plane and I could go swimming right away." "Wait, you left the girl alone?" "Mom, come on." "Of course not. She thought it'd be more fun to go with her girlfriend instead of me." "Where's Uncle Steve?" "That's the thing, we don't know. We got here, the house is closed, there's no answer on the phone. So we decided to hang out on the beach for a while. And by tonight, if the owners don't show up, we'll figure out what to do. Go say hi to Pam. Aunt Pam was on the phone with Mary when I got here." "Wow, that's so synchronized. I'll have to meet her again." "Somehow I don't think you will." My son smiled. "You know something? Your friend will tell you herself. You know, they've arranged with her parents to meet them. So Mary's going on vacation without us. But it's a good thing she gave us a heads up. Otherwise, we'd have gone to meet her. Steve will be upset. He's been fond of Mary since she was in their care. Come on. He's the one who says it's all about letting the kids go in time, so he'll understand. I still don't know where they are or why they're not answering their phones. Maybe something happened?" At 6 p.m., Pam heard the phone ringing and, reaching for the receiver, exhaled a sigh of relief as she showed the screen to her friend. "Steve." "Finally," Tiffany answered. "Steve, what's wrong? Did you get the time wrong? We got here and you're not here, and the phone's unavailable. Girls, I'm sorry, I had an emergency I couldn't tell you about. But don't worry, I'll be home in half an hour. Where can I find you? We're at the beach, at our spot. Tell me, is everything all right? Or maybe we're not in time to help. Everything's more than okay. Everything's just fine and there's no need to help. You're here, and that's great. Steve hung up and Pam looked at the phone in amazement. He's so happy. He said he'd be here in half an hour. Well, thank goodness. So he'll come and tell me what happened. And if he's happy, it's no big deal. They saw Steve as he was walking along the embankment toward them. He had a satisfied smile on his face and he almost jumped up. Girls, I love you so much. Steve walked over and opened his arms, glowing with happiness. Steve, are you drunk? Pam looked at him sternly. Not drunk, but endlessly happy. He winked at her. But I have a good reason for it. What's our arrival? That, of course, too. But there's a more substantial one. I became a dad today. Oh my goodness, congratulations. You guys are great. Who is it? A girl. 3 kilograms, 200 grams, 252 centimeters. Wendy was taken away by ambulance this morning. It was too early to call you. I thought she'd have a quick delivery and you'd be here. Tiffany had a quick laugh. What do you guys know about this stuff? Well, now I know something. I was at the birth. Good for you. What are you gonna name it? I don't know. We haven't discussed it yet. Whatever Wendy wants. There he is, the perfect husband. Pam smiled. He does whatever his wife wants him to do. Yeah. And you turned me down, by the way. Steve winked at her. Well, it's for your happiness. For today. Well, before Wendy gets back, we should celebrate, Pam said. Then we'll be out of it. That's right, her friend confirmed. So we'll pack up, take them home, and go to the restaurant. That evening, as they sat together celebrating the birth of their daughter, Tiffany received a phone call from an unfamiliar number, and when she picked up the phone, she heard her ex-husband's voice. Hi, Tiffany. Hi, she said it in a muffled voice. What do you want? Can we talk? Go ahead. No. I'd like to do it in person. Oh, you want in person? But come south. I'm here now. That's a pity. When will you be home? How about I'm home here? I see. You don't want to talk? For once you figured it out? Tiffany hung up the phone, but she was seething with anger. It's been 5 years. He remembers his daughters growing up, decides he's had enough. What did he say when he found out about the younger Pam? Steve asked. He said that love is gone and no child I cannot keep him, and he already had a daughter, and Pam might not even be his. That's a good point. That's the kind of thing that makes me want to punch him in the face. Don't. Life will beat him up. Don't get your hands dirty. Pam cooled Steve down. She probably already has, Tiffany said. Otherwise he wouldn't have called. Lara had been throwing temper tantrums, breaking dishes and wringing her hands ever since she'd been with Dave. Tiffany never did that, and Dave took such behavior of his new wife as a confirmation of her ardent feelings, because they made up in bed for a long time afterward. He liked the process of reconciliation very much, and Dave sometimes even encouraged Lara to achieve the highest pleasure with her. Eventually the passion subsided, but Lara's habit of throwing tantrums never went away. Then Dave came up with a new way of reconciliation. He bought expensive gifts or gave a lot of money for shopping and all sorts of feminine things. But it was never enough for Lara. Not only that, but Claire, looking at her mother's behavior, began to act the same way too. She'd throw tantrums about a toy she hadn't bought, about not getting candy or soda just because she wasn't going on walks where she wanted to go, and because she was so much like her mother, Dave, seeing first the little tantrums and then the big ones, suddenly grew tired of the screaming in the house. He suddenly began to remember the calm nature of his first wife, the boys who had happily accepted all his ideas, and even Mary, who at Claire's age had been her complete opposite. Any talk of improper child-rearing Lara took in the bayonet. It's your job to make money. I'm in charge of parenting, so just stay out of the way. Dave was surfing the internet looking for a solution to the problem and came across an advertisement for genetic tests. At first he splashed it for uselessness, but then in his thoughts he returned to this idea more and more often. Secretly from Lara, he came with the material to the laboratory. As soon as his wife started another hysterics, Dave did not make any attempts, but just stood and looked at her red, ugly face. "Are you even listening to me?" shouted Lara. "Why would I want to do that?" Because I'm your wife. I don't think that's going to last much longer. That you said I was divorcing you. Lara smashed a plate on the floor. You're going to provide for us for the rest of our lives. And I don't think you're going to lose. Why is that? Did you buy all the trials? Well, I'll find someone to bribe. You'll find someone to give it to. I can't do that with a bribe. I have an ironclad argument. Dave showed me the test results from afar. That's not my daughter. You ruined my family and married me by deception. No one will award you anything for any bribe. Oh, you took the test. Who put you up to this? Your beautiful first wife and her bully son. That's my son. And unlike you and Claire, he's a reasonable man. If you two had behaved normally, I probably never would have known the truth. So blame yourself and your rotten parenting. And that you won't even ask who Claire's father is. I'm not interested. Probably just as poor as you are. That's the only reason you chose me. Our whole life together I've been cheating on you with this lowlife. Understand? Lara wanted to jab her husband, but he instantly lost all feelings for this woman. Dave collected the woman's baby things and took them to Lara's apartment. Then he went and filed a divorce petition with the court. Mom, I got a call from Dad, said Alex. For the last couple of years his father began to call his son and congratulate him on holidays. Alex coldly thanked him and hung up. What's the holiday? Mom was surprised. There's no holiday. He just wanted to talk to you. But you're not picking up the phone. Doesn't he know our new address? Of course I don't. I blocked him at his new address. He can't get a new address. He's nobody. He asked if he could meet you. I said I'd find out. Call him back. Maybe he had an emergency. Tiffany looked at her son. He hadn't forgiven his father, but Dave was still his dad, and Alex was still worried about what had happened. All right, we'll set up a meeting at the mall. I'll come talk to you. Do you want me to come with you? Only if you want me to? Tiffany shrugged. I'd like to meet my daughter, if that's okay, Dave asked his ex-wife ingratiatingly. They settled into the food court at the mall. Tiffany got herself a coffee, her son a Coke and fries. Dave sat without food. Why? So he could run away from her to another woman with a kid. Because the daughter needs to know who her father is. She doesn't owe anything, at least not to you. Listen, dear ex-husband, we've learned to live without you. And now you show up on our doorstep again. No, it's your life to deal with. But I'm not letting you see my daughter. What about Alex and Andrew? Tiffany turned to her son and looked at him. They're grown-up boys, it's up to them. You guys can stay here and talk, but I think I'm gonna go. I don't like wasting my free time. I don't have a lot of free time. What do you say? Dave asked his eldest son. We can keep in touch. Why? Asked Alex in response. Why? Because I'm your father. My father died 5 years ago, and you're a strange man pretending to be him. Stay out of our lives. You messed up your own. At least leave ours alone. Alex got up from the table and followed his mother. Dave watched them and felt tears forming in his eyes. Mary talked to her father a couple times a month and even went to visit him sometimes. And remember that housekeeper of his? The one who cooks good food? Kate's name? I remember you telling me about her. Yeah, Pam said. So she's not his housekeeper. She's his wife. Well, since we're still not divorced, I'm the wife. She's more of a mistress. Mom, why didn't you get a divorce? Do you want Daddy to come back? God forbid. You're still a minor. And in this case, the only way to get a divorce is through the courts. Dad and I decided we don't need all this, so we'll wait a couple more years until you're 18, and then we'll all have a party. John called Pam 2 months after her daughter's birthday. You know Kate is pregnant, and I want to get a divorce to legalize our relationship with her. No problem. Let's file. The date was set in 2 months. Although John joked with the registrar and asked for it to be quicker. And what are you men so eager to be free? She waved her hands. I will be free. And he will be in a new bondage. Pam replied with a smile. On the appointed day, Pam and Mary agreed to meet and sit in a cafe after the divorce to celebrate. Pam walked down the snowy street. The almost spring sun was shining brightly, and she was in a great mood. Waiting for her at the entrance to the registry office was her husband, who would become her ex in a few minutes. They went into the office together. The girl doing the paperwork said the obligatory word and asked for passports. Oh, and I forgot mine in the car. Rushed toward the exit John and sprinted out the door. I didn't, said Pam, and looking at him took the passport out of her bag and handed it to the girl with a smile. Do you need a ride? John asked as they walked out of the registry office. No thanks, I'll walk. Mary and I agreed to meet and celebrate. Divorce? Of course, the long-awaited freedom should be greeted with a smile. Pam kissed her ex-husband on the cheek and turned and walked in the opposite direction.